So I used to think I was a pretty good writer until I went to college. And I had an English professor who I would get my papers back from him, and he would have marked out like half the paper with just red. And so I feel like that's sort of how I do, or I want to do these videos, is I want to get them down to the bare bones. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen, and I feel like I'm not quite communicating as directly as I'd like. But I'd like to be as clear and concise with this video as possible. This is springboarding off of my husband's video 2 days ago, and it's about why I will not be talking to men. And let me just, this is very important to us. And so number one, and this is what he mentioned, was that it's very clear in the word that women are not supposed to teach men. And that's the biggest thing, you know, and that's what he mentioned in his video. And I would like to add on to that. So number two is that I have this tendency to not want to ever hear or be a part of any conversations directed towards husbands. So like in the marriage circles, you know, of Christian marriage circles or whatever, you know, the books and the whatnot, that I will not read a book that's directed towards a man, because it's going to be talking about things that I have no business knowing about or hearing about. And why do I have no business hearing about this subject? Is because it is so easy for the devil, the enemy, to stir up a little bit of discontentment. If a wife hears about how a husband is supposed to be loving her, she will, you know, automatically, you know, compare and say, you know, well, my husband's not really doing that, and so maybe I don't have to be as submissive towards him or whatnot. And I don't care, you know, who you are or what you say. I'm pretty sure it happens to the best of us. So this is why I really, really, really try to avoid any kind of conversations, either myself initiating them or being a part of hearing them. And if I do hear them or read them, I usually make it a point to say, maybe this conversation would be best left for the men to discuss. Because, again, my actions, my part of the deal, of the arrangement of biblical marriage, has nothing to do with his. They are two completely separate issues, and I don't think I have any business hearing or talking about how a husband should love his wife. That is something another man should be having a conversation with a man about. You know, this is stuff left for men to discuss. It has nothing to do with me. So when we're looking at, for instance, recently, 1 Peter 3 has these instructions to wives, verses 1 through 6. Now, 7 is an instruction to a husband, and I will never go there. I won't discuss that. I won't talk about that. And so am I giving a one-sided message? Yeah, definitely. And I don't think that's unbiblical. I think that's totally fair. And I also wanted to touch on something really quick. And I feel like maybe I say the same things a lot, but like maybe worded differently. I'm not sure. But this is something I said very early on in some of my videos, possibly. But our actions as wives are not hinged upon whether our husband is a godly man or not. You know, 1 Peter 3 talks about that specifically. Is that the woman can be the change in her unbelieving husband's life. And to go with that a little bit farther, I would just like you to look at that first verse. 1 Peter 3:1. Likewise, ye wives. What is likewise? It's like a connective conjunction, right? Or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't gotten there in grammar yet, and it's been very long since I've been in a grammar class. But likewise, you have to look back and see what it's talking about. So we have to go back to chapter 2. What is chapter 2 talking about? Servants. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. And, you know, we'd have to look up that old English word to see what exactly that meant. But we know that it's the opposite of good and gentle, right? So this is just an admonition to those wives who think that they only have to submit to a godly man. It's not biblical. I'm sorry. Likewise, sends us right up there to this conversation about servants and masters. And he even goes into a little bit more detail about why. And he says that it's more, it gives the Father more glory when we suffer wrongly. And just think about our ultimate example of a submission is Christ. And if anybody else, if anyone in this whole world suffered wrongly, it was him. You know, he was perfect and had no sin, and yet he had to suffer for us. And so it brings God more glory when we submit to somebody who is less than worthy to submit to. And so that's just a little bit of an extra into this conversation, but you know, it is important. And the last thing is that personally in my life, when I'm around somebody, like we've met viewers of the channel, and when I'm around somebody who's not my husband, a man who's not my husband, it is very awkward for me, and I think that's a good thing. It's hard for me to make conversation, and I don't really feel comfortable making conversation if my husband is not there. It's another reason why I wear a head covering in these videos. You know, I'm not necessarily up here in the woods praying at 7 o'clock in the morning, even though I probably should be. But you know, I do like to wear a head covering when I'm around, when I'm in public. So. And that's what this is. You know, when I first started making videos, it was to, you know, the Revolting Man audience, which was like 98% male. So, but the thing is that I keep my distance when it comes to male relationships. And I think that's healthy. I think that's a good thing. And it's just it's a precaution. It's a safeguard. You know, so often in modern church, you know, modern churchianity, that, unhealthy relationships are formed between opposite sex, right? You know, either a wife, she looks to some kind of other man for her spiritual fulfillment, a pastor or whatever, or just unhealthy relationships that could be potentially dangerous as far as adultery is concerned. So, you know, I just go ahead and cut all that out, and I'm probably going to have a hard time, you know, doing any kind of physical, like handshaking or anything like that. I'm not comfortable with that. I was very appreciative when I met Pastor Joe Fox and Sister Kate, when she just went right up to me and gave me the biggest hug, and he was just he nodded, and I was just like, this is it, you know, this is, I would appreciate that, you know, like the nod thing, because, you know, any other breach of physical contact is really, really uncomfortable for me, and I'm not okay with it. So anyways, that made it, I kind of shortened it up a little bit. Last time I shot this, it was kind of longer and more babbly, but you know, I hope this makes sense, and that y'all come away with, you know, a little bit more insight, especially that likewise to me was just crucial when I was studying this stuff out. I mean, because I was lost. You know, we are not taught this stuff. Women are not taught this stuff. Girls are not taught this stuff. You know, so when we come into a biblical marriage, our minds are blown, and we have to start from the bottom up with nothing and figure all this out. And if you're like me and you're trying to figure it out all on your own, it can be just earth-shattering and tear you apart, you know. And why is my husband not loving me? And, you know, like, how can I submit to him? And he's acting like this and doing this, and, you know, this'll really break you, and that's a good thing. You know, God wants us broken so we can be molded into his image. So bless y'all so much, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye.